All right, well, with that, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling on our planned presentation here today. My name is Ben Townsend. Welcome to all of you. I assume most of you, this is now more than your first time being here. I don't even know, I've lost track of how many of these we've done now. We've got to be getting close to 17, 18 maybe. All right, Max, do you even have any idea how many of these we've done?
That sounds about right, but I don't know the exact number. It's getting up there.
Yep. And we're still sitting here working out of the house. And it sounds like, from all I understand about what's going on in this world, it sounds like a second wave of COVID is coming. I have no idea. So I am dutifully wearing my mask when I go out in public and trying to do my part to help out with that. And who knows when things are going to get back to normal. It doesn't feel like it's going to be in 2020. So I hope everybody's hanging in there and your lives are still doing well. And everybody's still working, hopefully. So, all right, well, let's dig into today's topic. And this is again, as I mentioned a moment ago, is not a pure evidence topic. This is not something that 18 weeks ago I would have imagined having a webinar talking about vision. But nonetheless, it is something I feel very passionately about. I hope that it is something that is you will take and run with it here today. I think vision is an extremely important part of anything, no matter what you're trying to accomplish in this world. But the reason it may feel so extraordinary to be talking about it in a group like this is because I think genuinely in law enforcement, police departments, talk of vision and things like that are not a normal part of what goes on. I mean, I know vision exists everywhere, but what I'm hoping today is I can take the concept of vision and bring it down to a level where it is applicable to what is going on in an evidence room. And if it's not happening, I think the way I'm going to present it here today, I hope you'll walk away and say, hey, that's something I would like to implement, or something I'd like to take a serious look at and find out, how do I understand more about implementing vision into what I'm trying to accomplish? So with that, let me give you a couple of quotes that I have come across that were really important to me, or I thought really were valuable to what we're talking about here today. So the first one is by Helen Keller, and her quote is, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision." And hopefully most of you know who Helen Keller is, but she was born blind and deaf. And to say something like that, I think has great value. Another one by Steve Jobs, who I really envied Steve Jobs from a visionary standpoint, from a being able to get visionary things done. I don't particularly like Steve Jobs. I didn't think he was a very good person, but when it comes to visionary, there are very few people I think could be argued that he was a greater visionary. But his quote is, if you're working on something exciting that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed, the vision pulls you. And I think that's something to consider with the work you do. Do you genuinely care about the work you're doing? Does your vision, does the work that you're doing excite you and pull you along? Or do you literally have to drag yourself out of bed every day just to make it through another day? And the last, or one of my next quote here is, where there is no vision, there is no hope. And I found this of particular value because for me, I believe the concept of vision does have a built-in hope factor to it. When you're thinking ahead and focusing toward the future and driving after something, it does provide a level of excitement. It does give hope about where you're going and what is going on. And so that is another reason that I think it's so important to have a vision for where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish, because in and of itself, it does bring hope into the mix. And then the last one I'm going to throw out as we begin to break into some different things here is, significant accomplishment has its roots in significant vision. So if you think about the work you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish, I believe it goes, I think it's important to say, and I think this statement is exactly true, that if you want to accomplish significant things, you have to have significant vision going on. I don't think you can have significant accomplishment without significant vision. And so with that, I want to break into that a little bit. So now I'm going to sort of take a side turn to the left. And as I've shared a couple of weeks ago when I did my first problem solving leadership type webinar that we did, I told you a lot of this comes from me learning the wrong way to do these things. I wish I had 30 years of background and experience of doing all of this the exact right and correct way. But many times I've learned the things that I'm talking about from doing it the opposite of right. I've done it exactly the wrong way. And so the part I want to share about vision, because this particular topic is one of those that really kicked me in the butt about 5 years ago. I was going through, and I shared this in the last webinar that I did on the problem solving. I shared with you, one of my developers had come to me and said, hey, I would like to run my own business someday, but I don't know how to do it. And I wound up stumbling across a leadership book. He and I started going through that leadership book together. And it was the chapter on vision that is what really stood out to me and really hit me right in the face and made me basically do an about face and say, wait a minute, what are you doing? Because he uttered the phrase to me, I don't understand the vision of what we're doing around here. And as a business owner, I took that as, man, that's a really, really bad thing that I've got somebody working for me that doesn't understand the vision of what we're trying to accomplish around here. And when you don't have a vision, again, you can wander aimlessly and not even understand why you're doing what you're doing. And when he said that to me, I thought, oh my goodness, how is it possible that somebody working here doesn't even have a vision of what we're trying to accomplish in this world? And just to further really test as to whether that was true or not, I had lunch with a previous employee of our company, and I asked him, just literally, I wanted to find out what his answer was. What do you think the vision of Tracker Products was? And I think I've shared this with you before, but his response to me was really telling. He said, I really thought the vision of the company was to line your pockets. And that would be great if my pockets were being lined, if I had a lot of money to show for my efforts. But when you're spending every dollar you're making and there isn't piles of money laying around, if somebody is operating under the vision that we're just trying to line your pockets, especially when that's completely contrary to what our vision is or what I thought our vision was, I realized I had a real problem on my hands. So part of what we're going to do today is go through some of what got me to the point of laying out the vision that I now share with everybody that is a part of Tracker Products. And I'm hoping this is going to be a setup to each one of you starting to lay out what some of your visions are and some of the things you want to accomplish, even within an evidence room. But I would also suggest that the things we're going to talk about are applicable in life, in relationships, in anything you're trying to accomplish. It starts with a clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish, and then you go about getting that done. All right, so I want to read another quote now. I'm sorry, I forgot my John Maxwell book. One sec. Sorry, I left this book on my other desk, and a lot of what we're talking about here today is based on this book right here. And some of you, after I did the last webinar, emailed me and asked me this book that I was reading from, and I hope some people went out and got it, because this to me is one of the most phenomenal books on leadership. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about here now is rooted in this book. All effective leaders have a vision of what they must accomplish. That vision becomes the energy behind every effort and the force that pushes through all the problems. Now, again, in our previous webinar that we did on problem solving, we really elaborated that there are problems everywhere. You guys recognize that every day there's this problem, there's that problem. Somebody's always coming up with new problems and they're inventing new ways to be a problem. And your ability to push through those problems is critical. But having that vision and why you're trying to do what you do, that helps you push through those problems. And I believe very heavily on that. All right. Now, there are 4 levels in the book. It describes 4 different levels of visionaries. All right. And I believe whether you have a vision or don't have a vision, you're on this spectrum right here in what I'm reading. So the first level is some people never get it. They are wanderers in this world. All right. Now, I don't believe that you guys doing the work that you're doing, you have to have some vision for what you're trying to accomplish. But if you have no idea why you're doing what you're doing, and you're showing up every day and you're just doing the work that somebody else told you to do, it may be that you're just sort of wandering through what you're doing. And what I want to try to do is push you down to some of those lower levels down there, or actually higher levels, to really have a sense of what you're trying to accomplish. And we're going to really dig into that as we go along. The second level is some people see it but never pursue it on their own. They're the followers. Then the next level is some people see it and pursue it. They are achievers. Then the very last level, what I would say is the gold level, is some people see it and pursue it and help others see it. They are the leaders. And we're really going to focus on that, helping others see it as we go through this, because I believe that is critical in your roles that you're in. And I don't care what you're doing. I mean, I know that we've got people on this webinar that are in all different levels of work, and you're in all different levels of leadership and their seniority within your infrastructures that you're dealing with. And I believe helping others see what you're trying to achieve is a critical component to getting your vision out there. Okay? A person with vision talks little but does much. A visionary person does little but talks much. You guys know anybody like that? Think about that for a moment. People who have people with vision, they talk little but do much, and a visionary person does a lot of talking, but they don't get anything done. Continuing on, a person with a vision finds strength from inner convictions. A visionary person finds strength from outward, sorry, one second, my screen's blocked, from outward conditions. Then the last one, a person with vision continues when problems arise. A visionary person quits when the road becomes difficult. Now, there's no doubt about it. If you sit and think about some people in your life, maybe some people in your organizations, you probably can pinpoint some of these people and you can say, that is a person with a vision, and then there's a visionary person. And that one at the very bottom is the one that really stands out to me. People with vision, they'll work through all kinds of problems. And then just a visionary person, they quit when the road becomes difficult, which is almost immediately, no matter what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, I want to read something that I'm a huge fan of Disney. We were just talking about Hamilton a little bit ago in Disney Plus. I like to read about Walt Disney and just the history of Walt Disney. And again, he falls onto the scale of, I believe, he is a true visionary. But I'm reading a quote that was in this chapter in the book, and it was actually a quote given by Miss Disney. So Walt Disney had already died, and they were at the opening of Disney World in Orlando. And Miss Disney was asked to speak at the grand opening since Walt had died. She was introduced by a man who said, "Miss Disney, I just wish Walt could have seen this." She stood up and said, "He did," and sat down. And how true is that? I mean, Walt Disney, yes, he never saw the final version and the actual theme park, but in his mind, he knew exactly what that thing was going to look like. And I thought that quote was very significant right there, because people with a vision, they don't need to see the end product. They have an idea of where they're trying to move with this thing, and they can go along and get to that end goal that they're shooting for. Now, here's one. I'm going to bring this right in your front door. A perfectly executed vision, and you're going to recognize this person. I retire in X number of days. Okay, so think about somebody in your department. A lot of the people on here work in police departments. Think about that person, you know that they're going to retire in X number of days, and they can tell you exactly how many days it is. They've got the financials worked out. They know exactly where they're going to be. It may be that they're 3 years away from it. They may be at 845 days, but they're counting down every day. They know exactly what's going on. They've got a vision for what life is going to look like the minute they go into that. And my question to you is, are you acting like you retire in X number of days and you aren't giving any thought to your work or your job? Or do you have a vision and a passion for what you do and it shows in your work? Because that's the thing that is, I see it all the time. And it is a bit frustrating when people have checked out of their jobs and they're simply counting down the number of days until they're done. And ultimately, they probably don't have a lot of vision and passion for what they're doing. But I've also known people that are retiring and they have a passion to finish very well and strongly, and they want to leave their agencies in a better spot than when they came in the door. And that, to me, is probably the number one reason I want you to have some vision for what you're trying to do, because when your job does come to an end, whether you move on to something else or you retire, I hope you have the satisfaction that you left your organization better than what you came in the door. Now, the next part of this is, and we're going to go into an exercise here in just a moment, we're going to start helping you build a vision for what you're trying to accomplish. And I hope you look at this and you'll step back from it, because I'm actually going to send you a Word document that helps you start laying some of this out and building it. I hope you share your vision and goals with somebody. All right, so let me give you an example. We get phone calls all the time from people that are in evidence management, and they're dismayed either because their boss or the chief or something else doesn't listen to them. They devalue the work that they're doing. Ultimately, they just don't listen to them. And one of the questions I ask, and I'm trying to help to really build on this here today, is how often do you go to that boss or the chief or whatever and sit down and talk about what your goals and visions are versus you just walk in when there's a problem, or he just walks in when there's a problem? And so your relationship is really based on this. Hey, we've got a problem going on, and I don't really want to go sit down with that person and talk with them and get to know them. Imagine, and I know this could be really hard for some of you to imagine that you routinely sit down with the boss or the chief or whoever it is, and you convey to him some of what your visions and goals are. If you do that consistently, I guarantee you, number one, they may be shocked because most people aren't expecting that. But when you do that consistently, when you do go in with a problem or when they're suggesting something you don't like, I guarantee you, you will get a different response out of that person when you've already built the relationship up, and it's not just based on problems, okay? If you are on the line here and you run a team, if there's multiple people in your evidence room and you're responsible for multiple people, are you consistently conveying a mission with everyone? Like, do you have priorities and again, a vision for your evidence room that you convey to people? That absolutely is a critical component, because if they don't know what you're thinking, how are they going to know about doing the work that they do? And here's one of the things that I would suggest conveys a bit of a sense of a vision. And this is going back to David Bragg at Bowling Green. I know that every year he sits down with his chief and gives him statistics about what's going on in his evidence room. How many of you go back to the chief not he comes to you and asks for information, but you willingly go to him every year and sit down and say, hey, these are the most critical things we're working on. These are the things we're doing well on. Maybe here's the things we're not doing so well on. And you really put them in a position of, hey, these people in the evidence room know what they're doing. So here's where this all comes down to something I want to be able to work on with you. In the Facebook community group, I'm going to put this Word document. All right. And I'm hoping that what you're going to do is you're going to download this Word document, and you're going to use this as a beginning to putting a vision together for the evidence room. Now, it's in a Word doc, so you can chew this up and tear it up and make this very different than what it is. But what I'm trying to do is get you started with something. All right. And I think, let me bring up the actual Word document here. Here's the actual Word document. So what I want you to do, and I've given you, there are 8 different things listed to just sort of grease the wheels. Again, I don't care if you get rid of all 8 of them and build your own, but your document should contain visions and goals. And then down at the very bottom, put down things you've accomplished. You should keep a running list of the goals and visions you have and how you're coming along with them. And what I'd really like you to do is work on this and then eventually print it out and put it on the wall. Imagine if every day when you came in, you were faced with looking at a document that laid out some of your long-term visions and accomplishments. I promise you, you will go through your day and you will go through your work in a much different way when you've laid out what it is you're trying to do. So let me just read through some of these things that I've written down on here to just sort of get the ball rolling. And what I'd like is for you, if you have other things that you would like to add to this, I'd love to put them on here. Or think about those things, and when we post them in the Facebook community group, add your comments in there to it. All right, so let's start out with some of the ones that I think are the most important. Visions and goals. Number 1, I will consistently engage my boss, my superior, my chief, etc., and simply communicate with them. Not just convey the problems, but to talk. Put a reoccurring meeting on your calendar. And I'm curious, has anybody on here today done that, where you've put on your calendar a reoccurring meeting to simply sit down and talk and convey information about your evidence room, but not per se to communicate problems? I'm going to guess most of you have not done that. That's not something people would normally do. Number 2 on the list, If I lead a team of techs, I will consistently meet and discuss elements of this document. I will convey things that are going well, referring to my vision, but will also give feedback on areas that can be improved. Put a recurring meeting on the calendar. So if you're on here listening today and you have multiple people working in the evidence room, how long do you sit down with them to just simply convey what is going on versus, hey, I've got a task or a problem I need you to deal with? This document right here should be your vision and your goals and objectives for the evidence room at large. Now we start to get into some of the meat of this. Number 3, my users have been trained on evidence intake, and the training is so meticulous that I only spend a fraction of my day storing the new items that are coming in. Be very specific, put an amount of time instead of the word fraction on there. So one of your goals and objectives, if right now it takes you an hour every day to do intake, one of your visions may be, I want that to be a 10-minute process every day. How are you going to go about getting that done? What are the things that need to happen to get it there? That's something you put that up on the wall and say, I want to obtain that. Now, how do I go about getting it done? And then by having it on this printed out list, now you can come back and say, how am I doing on that? Okay. The next one, I will complete full inventories of all my guns, drugs, and monies every quarter and all of my evidence every year. Reports will be submitted to whoever that is to show that the work has been completed. Now, again, let's take a step back for a moment. What would your chief or your sheriff or your boss, if you laid out some of your goals and objectives and took this in and sat down with them and said, hey, I just want to share you some of the things that I'm trying to accomplish, what would they do? How many of you would say they'd fall out of their chair? They wouldn't even know what to do with themselves. I'll bet you most people in the department are not doing this. Most of them do not have a goals and visions laid out and put on the wall of the evidence room. Okay. Number 5, I will submit annual evidence reports to my chief. Replace the chief with whatever the title your boss is, so that the command staff is fully aware of critical statistics and better aware of the evidence state of the union. Commit to that. You know, if that's something you feel strongly about, commit to that and put that down on there and say, we are going to do that every year. Again, how would your chief feel if you walked in and you had an annual report that you were prepared to give him every year that said, this is what's going on? Might be blown away. All right. Number 6, dispose as much evidence as I bring in each year. Most people would have that as a goal or a vision. Now, I would say, you know, the next thing is how are we going to get to this? How are we going to accomplish these things? But today is we're not concerned with how do we accomplish them, or even if it's possible. I would say you just need to write down the things you want to shoot for, regardless of how crazy it is. Okay. Number 7, I will be able to find any piece of evidence in my room within X minutes. Depending on the size of your room, replace the X with an actual time value. Put on your document, I will find any piece of evidence within, say, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever the number is. Put something down and then go for that. Okay. And then every year I would have somebody test you on that. All right, great. Bring up a piece of evidence. I'm going to go find it. Number 8, and I think this is a really important one. I will not bow to failure or problems. I will take them as an opportunity to learn and move on. I will share my failures so that others can learn from them. That's a critical component too. Now, I left a blank line in here just for you to sort of spitball some ideas where, again, you are not concerned whether or not it's possible to accomplish these things. I would write down, if I had blank, I could or would do whatever the blank is. So maybe it's, if I had 2 employees or 2 volunteers in my evidence room, here's what I would do. I would convey that to your superior and say, if I had this thing, I could get this thing done. Because what happens so many times, people walk in the door with their problem. I'll bet you most of you could say, yep, I went to the chief and told him this was a problem. And what was the result? Nothing. Didn't listen to you. Nothing happened. Go in next time and say, hey, I got a problem, but I've got 3 possible solutions for you. Which one of these do you like best? Again, when you get them off the floor or her off the floor, then you can begin to have a discussion about which one of these 3 are best. Like the people that work within our company, they understand. If you walk in with a problem and no solution, I may sit there and be like, I don't know what to do, or I may come up with an answer you may not like. But I love it when people say, hey, we got a problem and this is the answer, or here are 2 or 3 answers. And then down at the very bottom, keep this Word document on your desktop, on your computer, and then go in and update this thing and put down things you've accomplished. And then when you meet with the boss or superior every year, let them know these are the things that have been accomplished. Because if you don't tell them, I'll bet you anything, for most of you, what your chief thinks is, well, they haven't lost any evidence, or I don't know if there's a problem yet. They probably don't know what you're accomplishing. And so when you go in for review or whatever else, let them know these are the things I've done over the year, and keep up with these things, because it's amazing at the end of the year, you can forget all of the things you did. So for example, I wrote down here, you know, July 15th today, you completed the vision training course and compiled my vision for the next year. How about that for a start to things that I've accomplished? Is I started laying out some of my visions for the evidence room. These are things I want to accomplish. Again, we don't care if they're practical or they can be done. Put them down on your list and give yourself something to go for. I'll bet you anything, your day is going to look different when you come in and you look at this list and you're like, okay, I need to work on this, this, and this. And I also guarantee you, when you look at the accomplishments piling up at the bottom, you are going to look back on those things and be far more excited about what you've done. So for me, I start out every year and I put down personal and business accomplishments for myself. So one of my personal accomplishments was to read X number of books this year. So I'm keeping track of them, and every couple of weeks I've got a task on my computer that pops up, and I look through all these things that I wrote down. Now, I've not only got my own personal things I'm trying to accomplish and my business things I want to accomplish. We've got 25 employees that are part of Tracker Products. So I keep on top of the things that they're trying to do. And are you moving toward accomplishing some of those things you want? And we ask everybody that's employed at Tracker, we want your business goals, and we also want your personal goals. We're going to ask you, so if you put down on that document, hey, I really want to work out this year, we're going to ask you about that as the year that goes along. How are you going about achieving that thing you're doing? Okay, Max, I just sat there and talked for a long period of time, and I haven't seen any questions come in. And, I hope this has been valuable for everybody. If you have questions or thoughts, please toss them into the question window. But the next thing you're going to see is I'll take this document, I'm going to put it into the community group. And what I would love, I'm telling you, what I would love more than anything is if in a couple of weeks, anybody actually goes through this exercise, post in the community group a picture of you putting this up on your wall, or it actually up on your wall. It would excite me to a great degree if I saw people actually doing this. I think most people won't, but there is a couple of people out there that'll be like, you know what, I'm going to do that thing. Vision, again, as we said at the beginning of this thing, the way you accomplish great things is to have great vision. And if you don't have vision at all, you can easily go through a day, a week, a month, a year, and you're just moving along and you didn't get anything accomplished. All righty, I'm not seeing anything come in, but I am done with everything that I had. And okay, I'm seeing some good stuff come. I'm seeing some comments come in. I don't see any questions come in. So great. We're going to end this here right now. And again, I'll post this all up on the Facebook community group. I'd love to hear back from you as to how this thing is working, if you're implementing this or not. So everybody have a great day, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.